Dadish is a mobile platformer game that was released by Thomas K. Young or Cat Cup Games, who was also known as the creator of the Faust series before the Dadish games were released. The game launched on the 11th of February 2020 on iOS and other platforms on later dates. It was a charming, simple platformer game where you play as a dad, but also a Radish, and he's trying to save his not-so-intelligent children from mindless fast food henchmen that are trying to kill him that were hired by the infamous Lord Doorknock. The game was just meant to be something that you just pick up, play through it, complete it, and after that uninstall it, because there's nothing left to do due to the game's short length. For a while, that seems to always be the case, but over time, Dadish has received 6 great installments in the franchise over the course of 6 years. The game has also grown to have a small community filled with people who are posting fan art, fan games, and animations throughout different social media platforms that many people just seem to overlook. Even after more than half a decade of the franchise's existence, this franchise has remained to be one of the most underrated franchises in history. In this video, we are going to be covering the Dadish franchise throughout all of its games, its small community that has been residing in the back corners of the internet for the last 6 years, and why it deserves to be recognized more by the general public. This is the story of the most underrated indie franchise you never heard about. We're going to start off with the first Dadish game that was released on the 11th of February 2020 on iOS. The game starts off with Dadish dozing off to take a snap, but he realizes that he never taught his kids how to behave. Hence why his kids escaped following a red balloon that will be the start of everything on what's to come later down the line. The controls of Dadish are really simple. You press these arrow keys to move left or right, and you tap on the screen to jump or double jump, which is very straightforward. At the end of every level, Dadish rescues one of his children, who usually has a very funny joke planned for you when you rescue them, or occasionally gets harassed by a panicking possum by screeching at him. The bosses in the game are mindless henchmen that Lord Doorknock hired to kill Dadish at the end of every world in the game. It's safe to say that these bosses, including Lord Doorknock, are pretty bad at their job, because they intentionally left trap mechanisms in their levels that are designed to kill them that Dadish can use to its advantage, making the bosses very anticlimactic. The game has collectibles in the form of stars. If you collect all the stars in the game, you get access to a new character that you can play. Stars, however, are not required to get to the next world. Speaking of world, Dadish has 5 total worlds across almost all of its games, and all of these locations are vastly distinct from each other, containing new mechanics and enemies for Dadish to overcome in order for him to rescue his children. The premise of Dadish has been the same throughout all of its games, from the first Dadish game until Dadish 3, and its spin-offs Daily Dadish and Dadish 3D. Except with the newly released Dadish 4, where Dadish was the one who gets kidnapped by the antagonist, leaving his eldest son Dadish Jr. or DJ to save him instead. Which some people in the Dadish community have been wanting for a more creative and unique story for so long, in order for everything to be more creative and fresh. Everything in the Dadish games is fun, well crafted, and gives you that warm sense of familiarity from other platformer games that you have already seen before without punishing the player all that much. But you may be wondering, if the games are very fun and somewhat successful in the mobile gaming market, how come its community very rarely is even talked about when it comes to the Dadish franchise? Well, let's talk about the Dadish community and what they're up to recently. The Dadish community is a community that you didn't even think would exist for a small mobile game that you would just beat in a couple of hours. This community is filled with creators whose purpose is to make Dadish themed content, not artificially, but naturally through fan games, animations, and fan arts. The most noteworthy creators that are currently keeping the small community alive, other than Thomas K. Young or Radish Dadish, Tessie, and other small creators who are currently in the process of growing their YouTube channels. They believe that there are already a lot of fan games and animations in the Dadish community, but it definitely needs more in order for Dadish to finally start standing out among the rest of the crowd. Fan games such as Tessie's Dadish Blitz and Super Dadish are icons to the Dadish community when it comes to good fan games and what fan games should be doing, and that is bringing out good ideas that make people interested in your work. There are people doing fan arts of other video game characters in the Dadish style. Some of them may look a bit janky, but they don't look half bad at all. They are also even making their own Dadish characters, and some of them are even featured in shorts by Radish Dadish. There's even this absolutely gorgeous Dadish 4 fan art created by J. Brent Hill on Instagram, and Thomas himself loved it. The animations as well are very interesting. There are creators such as Tessie that are making animated Dadish shorts that look decently animated, and they're there are creators like the French YouTuber Zhao who are making really good animated data shorts inside Blender, which is a very complicated software used to make Oscar-winning films such as Flow. This is happening in the Dadish community slowly every single day. When new fan games, fan arts, and animated projects get introduced, the community gets hyped, and that hype spreads to other people who are interested in getting into the community while they wait for the next Dadish game to release. But why is a franchise that has good games and a good community that is somewhat active is so underrated and constantly heavily overlooked by so many people? It's time to finally discuss why the Dadish franchise and its community is very underrated and why it deserves better treatment. Dadish was released around the time when the mobile gaming market started to plummet into a dark age. Good games made by indie developers are starting to be put out less and less on the front page of the Apple and Google Play stores, and terrible mobile games that have misleading ads start to invade the mobile gaming market to maximize profit and gain from other people. If it would have released to, let's just say, 5 to 7 years earlier, when the market was still somewhat healthy, its chance of standing out could be a lot higher, and it would have racked up more players in the long run, and the franchise would have looked a lot different than what we currently see now, but we don't live in that timeline. You also have to take into account that Dadish released when the COVID-19 pandemic began. Around this time, the games that were heavily favored in this time period are social and battle royale games like Among Us, Fall Guys, Fortnite, and etc. These games were meant to bring many people together in virtual worlds as a form of communication when everybody was stuck in their homes and properly observed social distancing to avoid getting caught by the virus. Dadish didn't get the chance to shine in the turn of the new decade because other games that were released not only beat Dadish in terms of attracting new players, but also the engagement and popularity that these games had were nothing short of astronomical. And I couldn't help but feel bad for this franchise. Not only did other games completely overshadow Dadish in terms of popularity and fame, Dadish was completely overlooked by many people because 2D platformer games were not very popular around this time. Even 6 years later, this franchise is still overlooked by many people, and some people are leaving comments like, "The Dadish fandom exists?" Which makes me very sad. The games themselves are really fun, and they definitely deserve more attention from many people because of its charm, very funny story, the lessons it brings to parents, and its attractive nature towards children. Which is why I think it deserves more attention, because these types of mobile games and games in general, with a very unique idea that will bring some lessons to children, young adults, parents, and even grandparents, is quite rare and highly valuable. More games like Dadish need to exist, not in terms of copying the formula that Dadish did, but trying to interpret that storyline in more ambitious ways that teach lessons and be able to leave an emotional impact on the person who is playing it and translate those lessons into skills that you would apply to your skills in real life. The premise of this video is to spread the Dadish franchise and its community to more people outside the Dadish community. Your mission, dear viewer, share it to one of your friends, family, or to a person close to you about what the struggles of a parent really look like and start their own journeys in the world of Dadish today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you watched this video all the way to the end and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, you should subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications for my next upload. Also, did you know that this is only my second channel? The video that you're seeing on screen right now is from my main channel, where I cover exclusively Plants vs. Zombies content, and this video may attract your curiosity. Bye guys, I'll see you in the next one.